Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Offseason podcast, Rugby League edition. Thanks to myself, Joel from League of Inches, and Mr. Journo, Mr. Social Media Personality, Mr. Media, Mr. Isaac Issa himself as well. Mate, we missed you last week. Welcome back.
Yeah, it looks like you guys held down the fort pretty well. I'm sorry I couldn't be here. Obviously the off-season schedule feels like, regular season, as we said a couple of weeks ago. It's been absolutely hectic, but I'm glad to be back this week. And it seems that the footy gods have blessed us with a ton of footy to make up for me missing last week. So we got heaps to get stuck into today, so I'm keen to be here.
We definitely do. So let's just get straight into it. Once again, guys, make sure you go and give us some love. A quick shout out before we get stuck in. I remember 2 weeks ago we spoke about Isaac getting to 10K, and I predicted it would easily get done before we went to our next episode, which I know is technically now, which is 2 weeks, which is cheating, but it ended up happening. So well done to Isaac. He's absolutely killing it on social media. Haven't already, go and check him out on Instagram. Magnificent page. Well done, mate.
And can I just say, honestly, just absolutely blessed to be in the position that we're in, that we can, we were both talking, before the show, saying how absolutely buggered we are and how busy it's been. But God, we're so lucky to be able to sit here and be able to chat about footy and be able to share with all you guys as well. So look, the 10,000 was really cool, but I think we're both just extremely lucky to be able to sit here and chat about footy, and I'm blessed to kind of be able to do it every day. So huge milestone. But look, without the support from obviously you, Joel, and everyone else who's kind of listening, we don't get here. So has been really, really cool. And I'm keen to continue the journey.
I can't say anything else to up that, so I'll just absolutely agree and move on. So that'd be my best play there. So let's get into something that's happened this week for anyone that, I don't know, has been asleep for 3 days straight. Yeah, haven't gotten to it. Jonah Pezet officially has left the Melbourne Storm. Both clubs haven't officially announced this yet, but it's done, guys. Even Braith said on his podcast, it's done pretty much. So
yeah.
The Eels have signed Jonah Pezet for next year on a 1-year deal. This is, I'll go to it in a second. And the Broncos have signed him after that for 2027 and beyond. We're not exactly sure of the exact time frame for that, but I've been hearing it's about 3 or 4 years. But we'll see once the Broncos do release their public statement what that actually will be. But from an Eels point of view, just to quickly just clarify a few things I've heard. This is nothing to do with a loan deal, guys. This is just a pure 1-year deal. So this has absolutely nothing to do with the Storm. The Storm had their get-out clause, or Jonah had a get-out clause, triggered it once Hughes did re-sign with the Storm. And that's why we are where we are today. So it has absolutely nothing to do with the loan deal. He's cut ties completely now with the Storm. He's moving on from November 1. He'll be a Parramatta Eel. Isaac, from a Parramatta point of view, talk to us about what you think of this deal. This has been met. I've had so many. I'll say this from the get-go. I had so many messages hit me and so many fans up in arms about it. Then today, I've had a lot more messages come through, starting to understand and support the decision. Where are you at?
So the way that this has kind of been framed coming out of Parramatta and how Parramatta have, I guess, kind of seen this moving forward, their perspective is that they're getting a ready-made half to partner Mitchell Moses in 2026. And for those of you who have, seen on my social media, you might have missed it. And before the Jonah Pezet deal even came out, I made a bulk prediction for Zero Tackle that Parramatta would make the top 4 next year. And that was before Pezet even got there. I've got real high hopes for Parramatta in 2026. I think, the Eels have an amazing roster that people are not giving enough credit for. And the Eels think that adding Pezet to that, only boosts their chances at contending once again, which it's been a few years since they have. So from the Parramatta perspective, they're viewing this as a 1-year buffer where they get a ready-made halves partner for Mitchell Moses, who hasn't had, who was not going to have an experienced half next to him with Dylan Brown leaving. And then they would then have the opportunity to have one of their young guys, most likely Papali'i, come into that 6 role in 2027. Viewing, their young halves is probably not ready to contend yet. That's the Parramatta Eels perspective at the moment. Now, from my personal opinion, I don't view Jonah Pezet as a ready-made half. As much as I think that he's a talented player, and he's going to be a star in this league, and he could even win the Eels, quite a few games next year. I don't know if he is the plug-in that you'd kind of hope. I view Jonah Pezet more as a rising star than a current star. Now, if he comes in and, plays like he has, in his final couple starting games for the Storm, this is a home run for the Eels, and then they can kind of bring in who they need to in 2027. I'm just probably not as convinced that Jonah Pezet is the star player that, the headlines are kind of making him out to be. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I think that he will absolutely be a star. I almost think there's, a 95% chance that he is a star in this league for years to come. I don't know if one of those years is 2026. So I understand, I guess, the thought process behind the move, and I'm not one to, I guess, dismiss a decision that Jason Ryles makes. I know he's a very, very smart recruiter and coach in general. I'm just probably not fully sold on the star power that Jonah Pezet is kind of being made out to have.
Yeah, I'll be honest with everyone here. I just have been all over the shop the last 48 hours about this. I've been very up and down with how I think. Had a lot of time on the road with my job the last couple of days. I've had a lot of thinking time, listening to a lot of things and what other people have had to say. And as a Parramatta fan, I was initially really disappointed because I know that we obviously reported. Technically we got it right in the end. He has signed with Parramatta, so that was fantastic mail by yourself, Isaac. So thank you for that one. But I was so excited to have him for the next 3-4 years and really work a combination with Moses. Like you said, he's not an established 5'8" by any means. He is a halfback first and foremost, and then he'll develop. He could potentially develop into a 5'8". He has some really good qualities and attributes to his game. So I'm not doubting it. I don't think we will reap the best of Pezet next year. That's the concern. I would have rather to see that happen long term. That's where I'm really disappointed about it more so than anything. It kind of feels like, in a way, we've been up until like final 2 hours, we probably believed it will signing him for a long-term deal. Then the Broncos have sort of snuck up on everyone and it happened. And then Eels management, instead of saying, "Nup, deal's off," which we've seen a lot of clubs like the Roosters and that would do, they just go, "Nup, don't worry about it, see you later." We've sort of just helped the Broncos along here, and we've gone, "No, all right, we'll take you." I know the public persona, the public messaging is for us to win games next year is the priority, and I get that. I absolutely get that. This is what this game is about. It's about us winning football games. But does it help us? It sort of contradicted itself because Jason Ryles was very public this year about for the future. Everything's for the future. Every plan is for the future. Dropping Dylan Brown was for the future. Now it's all of a sudden the messaging's changed, which, to be honest, I don't mind because I was quite critical of the Bulldogs this year and the way they went about a lot of what they did. So I do get that side of things. The other part of the argument for this is he better than Joash and Lorenzo? I don't want to say his last name just because I can't pronounce it. I don't want to be disrespectful, but we do have a guy called Lorenzo. Look him up. Most Para fans now know him. He's a very, very talented football player. He only just played SG Ball. He was like the captain, I think, of SG Ball this year. Like, he's coming through the grades quite quickly. It's a rapid rise, but next year I think is a year too early for him. I think he will be very much pushing for a 6 jersey in 2027, which from that point of view makes perfect sense because by then he could very well be a better 5'8" than what Jonah Pezet is because he is a halfback probably first and foremost. So that side of it I get, and I do think next year Pezet's probably the best out of all three. And if once we do sign him, it's official. He would be my pick to play 5'8" ahead of both of those players. Joash, I know there's a lot of people out there that are massive fans of Joash. I love his energy. I love what he brings to the club. I do think he needs a little bit more time, though, to develop as a 5'8" and develop some of those skills, which, let's just be brutally honest with it, he didn't have was still learning his game towards the back end of the year. So as a fan watching those games, there was a few times I thought, oh, he's not quite ready yet for this. Like, he does need some proper time in reserve grade, where this year it was a pressure situation. And credit to him for jumping in. He's done a great job. But I agree with what you said. I think signing Pezet now does help Parramatta win probably a few more games next year. Will it justify and reach the potential that Parramatta are trying to speak out and tell the public about, like, oh, this could get us in the top 4 and really elevate a premiership push? As much as it sucks to say as a fan, I don't think so. I think we'll be a mid-table team and potentially get in the bottom half of the 8 and maybe win the first week. If not, we might go out straight away. But is that what we want? Does that validate basically taking someone on board to groom them for the Broncos in 2027 when we probably could have just kept Joash in? That's something that everyone else out there can probably have their say on, but that's where I'm sort of at, Isaac. I don't know if it's made much sense. It's probably as confusing as the situation feels, but yeah.
Yeah, I think what worries me about the way that this has kind of panned out is I'm looking at Jason Miles, and I want to make it very clear. I think he's going to be a great coach in this league. I think that he has looked at someone like Cameron Serraldo a couple of years ago, who went from 15th in his first year to 7th in his second year, and that was viewed as a major success. And I think that he is viewing like a situation like that as a success for Parramatta. The issue here is that if the Parramatta Eels finish 7th in 2026 or finish 8th in 2026, I don't think that's a successful season, or the successful season that I think that many peg the Bulldogs has in 2024. The Eels have a much better roster than what the Dogs had in 2024. People seem to forget that Mitchell Moses has missed so much time, and if he's playing he's like fighting for the best halfback in the game, if not easily top 3. You've got some of the best outside backs in the game. You've got a rising fullback who is, again, if we're comparing to the Bulldogs, like miles better than Connor Tracy. Like Parramatta Eels have a really good side, and in the lack of personnel is not why the Eels have struggled. It's it's injuries, it's unavailabilities, it's coaching changes. So I don't think the Eels finishing 7th next year is going to be hailed as the success that the Bulldogs had in 2024. Now, I do think if the Eels make the 8, obviously it is a successful season. I'm not gonna diminish that. But bringing Jonah Pezet in just to get become a mid-level team and go out in the first round doesn't overly excite me. Now, we're talking about it. I'm going to try to pronounce his name because I think I've got it. If you've got Lorenzo Talatena in reserve grade, who could be ready for 2027, that's great. But when Jonah Pezet leaves, you've still got Papali'i there who hasn't gotten his shot at a full season as 6. So then who's your 5'8"? You're now prolonging that decision until 2028 because you're going to be tossing and turning between these two halves to play as your 6, and you're not going to you have a much less clear idea of who your 5'8" is going to be in 2027 than if you would have just played Joash Papali'i and copped a few more losses in 2026. So when you really break it down, it actually still doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. If you had a locked in 6, it would have made a little bit more sense for 2027.
The other thing I just thought of when you were talking about it and explaining that, and I just thought on the run, and it's legit concern, is the next year now we'll have Pezet and Moses as starting halves. Okay, I can wear that. That's pretty good actually. But in reserve grade, where both of these players should be, and this is what the club's trying to say, they need an extra year basically to get where they want them to be at. Only one of them is going to be able to play in the 6. So the other one, which is probably Joash, will go back to fullback, which is fine. He is a fullback, so that's great for him. But he's not actually going to get any time playing 5'8". It's going to be Lorenzo, which is fine. So in my opinion, and what I feel like this is now the club starting to say, and I've not heard anything. I don't know. Don't quote me on this, but it feels like to me the club has realised that Joash probably isn't a 5'8". That's probably not his best position. But Lorenzo is obviously the future, so all eggs will be into the Lorenzo basket and play nice guys basically and try their best to hold on to Joe Ash as best as they can as that reserve guy for either the fullback position. We've seen him play a little bit of wing. I'm not a big fan of that, but he could pass a test, I guess, there if he needed to. But yeah, it's sort of for mine, if anything, it does put a bit of a question mark speaking out loud and thinking on the run. Maybe Joe Ash and where he actually lands and where his best position is, because he won't have a 14 jersey either because we're going to be splitting Riley Smith and Talon De Silva. So plus probably Dylan Walker coming off the bench as well. So there's no spots there for another utility. It's there's a few headaches there.
Yeah, and I think that's caused, and again, it's causing a little bit too much confusion for a guy who I personally have been so high on for a few years in Papali'i. I think he's a brilliant player, and I honestly had him ahead of Iongi as the fullback for the Eels this year. Obviously, Iongi is now the fullback. There's no question about it, but that's how highly I rate Josh Papali'i. So it's a huge shame, but one club, I guess, that also now has a few question marks around its, rising halves is the Broncos, where Pezet will be heading over to in 2027. So, looking at over to his deal moving from there, I believe it's a 3-year deal after he leaves the Eels. He'll be heading over to Red Hill, where another rising half in Kobe Black now has his future kind of clouded in a sense. Because Jonah Pezet is coming there, likely to partner Ezra Mam in the halves. So when you're looking at this deal from all angles, there's confusion all over the place. So look, the now currently what the deal is looking like, it's a year in Parramatta, going over to the Broncos after and playing as their halfback and essentially replacing Adam Reynolds, who is expected to retire at the end of 2026. Even more confusion now because Kobe Black, who's a rising halfback through the Broncos ranks and is touted as one of the great halfbacks coming through in all of Australian Junior Rugby League, now has his future at the Broncos clouded, and we're not too sure what's going to happen with Kobe Black now. So while it's exciting for Broncos fans, you're going to get essentially a halfback who has all the talent in the world and has now had a year of first grade to his name. It now throws another rising playmaker into a little bit of confusion.
Yeah, it's actually a bit insane when you think about one player here who is a young talent in himself on the rise, has actually felt like he's impacted about 3 or 4 now rising talents that are coming through 2 different clubs. So it's very funny how it's all worked out. And I do like the deal from a Broncos point of view. I think it's worked out perfectly for him. There's a very high chance they probably lose both Reynolds and Hunt next year. They probably both retire, especially if Reynolds. Maybe Hunt will go one more year. I'm not too sure there, but it's just going to be it's fantastic for them. Fantastic signing. But yeah, all we've heard in the last 3 years, it feels like, is how good Kobe Black is and going to be, and how he's literally the future of that club. There's going to be some big news coming out regarding him over the next little period, I feel like, because I don't know who his manager is. I have to double check all that. But it's just, I can't see that ending well now. He'll be wanting out. I feel like there'll be, look, I know we've seen playmakers go there and it's just a death trap for their careers, but I look at the Titans straight away and go, if they could grab him and just basically work with Campbell in the halves there, Campbell can go to a running 5/8 role, have him on board, because by now surely he's ready. We've heard about him for that long that surely he's ready to take the reins of a team. And with Josh Hannah at the realm, maybe that will be a style of play that can really work for Kobe Black moving forward. The other one that really speaks to me, and it's more of a up yours to the 2 clubs that have to the Broncos especially, is to go down to the Storm maybe and go for a year and go in the reserve grade, wait for something to happen there with Hughes or someone. And then, but that's probably another year or 2 for him to sit back, and he probably doesn't want that. Or very close to it, and he's just gone about 2 steps backwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, as you were kind of mentioning the whole, Ben Hunt and Adam Reynolds situation. Now, As you said, and just to add on to that, yeah, Ben Hunt hasn't ruled out playing in 2027, and he was a chance of taking that halfback role, which again laid out the perfect platform for Kobe Black to then come in. Like you have Adam Reynolds, who should be your halfback in 2026, rightly so. Then you have Ben Hunt come in and play, even if he played half the season at halfback until they integrated Kobe Black in. Both Parramatta Eels and the Brisbane Broncos had plans in place that would have benefited them in the future. Both now their future plans have gone out the window, and they've done exactly what the media has criticized the Bulldogs for, and rightly so, in completely messing up their entire future aspirations for one player. Now, it could definitely work out for all parties, and that's fine. But I think it's highlighting a deeper issue in rugby league where we feel the need to. Clubs are feeding these high profile headlines and banking their whole future on them instead of just trusting the process. You're bringing in Jonah Pezet, who is a great player, but there's every chance that both Kobe Black and Lorenzo Talatena are both better players than Jonah Pezet in 5 years. Like, Jonah Pezet is not this star halfback who has just taken the world by storm, and no pun intended, taking the world by storm. And, he's a good player and he can be a great player, but is he really, to the level that, we're making all these changes for? I'm not too sure. Like, I look at Lachlan Galvin, who caused the biggest uproar in rugby league this year, and I'm more impressed by what we've seen by by Lachlan Galvin coming through than what we've seen from Jonah Pezet coming through. And Lockie Galvin has caused, or his situation has caused more questions than answers over at the Bulldogs. So I look at Jonah Pezet, who, as a youngster, don't rate as highly as Lockie Galvin, who has now thrown two clubs' future into whack. I'm not too sure why these clubs are feeling the need to, I guess, dismantle their roster for a player that's making headlines at that time. Because as we've seen in the past, and a very recent past, it doesn't work, and it really does. When there is confusion and when there is uproar around a specific signing, there's usually a reason for it. It's not just the media kind of going crazy about it. So I am worried for both clubs. Now, again, it's great for the Broncos. If we're gonna pick a club that's doing well for, it's great for the Broncos. It sucks that they're gonna lose out on Kobe Black now, kind of excelling in Brisbane. But it definitely doesn't look good to me for the Parramatta Eels. So honestly, if we're gonna pick a club that it's worked out best for, it's worked out best for the Melbourne Storm, because they've now got Cameron Munster, who has committed his future to the Storm. They got Jerome Hughes, who has committed his future. It's at least they kind of have a laid out plan going forward. But yeah, I'm still really confused by this whole deal. And if I'm being honest, I would have preferred to see Jonah Pezet head to the Cowboys and just take their halfback role and play alongside Tom Dearden, where it actually makes sense for him to do so.
One thing for Broncos fans to be excited about, I mean, the future looks extremely bright. They've got potentially a spine of Reece Walsh, Ezra Mam. They'll have obviously Pezet as well, and then probably Blake Moser over the next couple of years. Like, that's going to be a spine that I reckon in years to come we'll be looking at as fans going, holy crap, we're going to verse the Broncos this week. So that is a very big, bright spot. But, mate, you've been on fire with your segues so far tonight. Keep it up. Cameron Munster has confirmed he will be remaining a Melbourne Storm player for the next 2 years. There's been obviously a lot of talk and open talk as well that basically, I was interested in the Bears, and it was a pretty interesting and appetizing sort of place to go. But it seems like he will now stay at the Storm. Look, we've seen this in the past, so make of that what you will. But for now, player agent Brayton Astor and Cameron Munster have both said publicly he will be honouring his contract at the Melbourne Storm. So it's been a tough week, Isaac, but at least they've got a bit more certainty around their halves, which is the key to obviously any premiership. To have Hughes and Munster there for another couple of years together keeps them in the fight, which should be pleasing all Melbourne Storm fans out there.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's nice to see that the Storm do have a plan in place. Moving forward, Jerome Hughes and Cameron Munster are their halves, and um, really it shouldn't be there shouldn't be any other kind of combination that they're thinking of for at least the next half decade. Now, I will say that Cameron Munster came out earlier in the week and said that he does want to play about 4 more years in the NRL. Now, his current deal is I believe he's got 2 years left on his contract. So I think it's likely that we see a final 2 years with the Storm. I don't see him leaving the club at this rate. So let's say you're going to get another 4-ish years of this Cameron Munster, Jerome Hughes halves pairing. That can definitely be 1 or 2 premierships for them in that time. And Munster said it himself. The Storm are likely to find some hidden gem to come in and essentially replace either him or Hughes once their time does come in the NRL, as they've done so on countless occasions that piss me off as an NRL fan, because I don't know how they keep finding these star players out of nothing. But I definitely do think that they can do it again, once again, after Munster and Hughes decide to hang it up. So I think that we're going to see, this halves pairing for a few more years to come. And, we now know that the Panthers they do. They're not indestructible anymore. The Brisbane Broncos are probably, the favourites heading into next year, but Melbourne Storm are right up there. And so I think they've made a good decision, backing Munster and having Munster back the club. And I think that we could see a ton of success coming out of Melbourne over the next few years. And look, a lot of these clubs are looking to the future. Clubs like the Eels and the Bulldogs and the Broncos and stuff. But at the end of the day, premiership windows don't come by very often. Us, the Titans and the Tigers and the Knights, these clubs have not even gotten a sniff of a grand final in many years. And the Storm have been in back-to-back grand finals. That's not easy to do. So as long as you can keep this premiership window open, I'm all for them going all in on their older stars.
I feel like the Melbourne Storm are making quietly. I think they're doing some things very subtly out there. They've let go of a few players from forwards. Let me just emphasize that word, forwards. And there's a guy that's about to test himself on the open market and publicly has said this today. Tino Fa'asuamaleaui. Talk to us, Isaac. What are you hearing?
Yeah, so big Tino, and it's a great segue because speaking of essentially their ability to bring in star players, Tino has officially come out and said, yep, I will be testing the market come November 1, which is a little over a week away. He said that his heart remains with the Gold Coast Titans. However, he's been there for 6 years, 5 years, and they have not had much success at all. So, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't even think they've made the finals with him. I could be wrong. No? Yeah.
Oh, no, they made... Was he there that year that they played the Roosters and all it took was that drawn pass that they stuffed?
Potentially. He potentially did play in that, but again, I think that was 2021. Like, it was years ago. It was a while ago. Yeah. So, even then, one final series with essentially a top 3 forward in the game is not good enough. And the roster that the Titans have had is actually quite impressive compared to other squads. The fact that they haven't seen much success points to a deeper rooted problem with the Gold Coast, and I think Tino knows that. And so he has come out and he has said that he is going to test the market and that he will be a free agent. Now, the reason that's interesting for the Storm is that the Storm are said to be one of the 4 clubs in the race for his signature. Now, as many of you would know, he was previously with the Storm before going over to the Titans. The other 3 clubs that are now in the race, now the Perth Bears obviously are one. They are looking to essentially give him a huge pay of $1.5 million a year, which is a massive salary. And I believe it would be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in the NRL. And 2 Sydney teams in the Canterbury Bulldogs and the St. George Illawarra Dragons. So the Dragons are expected to throw, the whole kitchen sink at Tino. The Bulldogs probably aren't playing with as much money as the Dragons or the Bears, but they've similar to the Storm, probably not at the same level, but they do have the allure of being a premiership contending side, which obviously the Dragons and the Bears do not at the moment. So these are the 4 clubs that are in the race for his signature. And look, if I'm being completely honest with you, between all the noise of, Josh Hannay potentially not being their coach in 27 and them chasing Bellamy and players leaving and just a poorly run organization overall from what it seems on the outside, I can't imagine Tino is going to be staying with the Gold Coast anymore, because he has come out on multiple occasions leading up to today's statement saying that, he's going to give the club a chance. But the fact that he is so eager to essentially make this decision from November 1 onwards, when he could have prolonged it months and finished his test series and, all the rest of it, I would be worried if I'm a Titans fan. I can't see him staying with the Gold Coast.
Absolutely, especially when he's emphasised the fact that winning is now very important to him as well. So I don't know what to do or say when it comes to Tino. I'm like you. I really feel for the Gold Coast Titans at the moment, because I think there's the next 12 months are massive. And I just feel like they're going to get themselves into a spot where they're almost backing themselves into this corner that Craig Bellamy is the saviour. And they had a chance the last month or so to really start turning this club around. They've made some really good moves. They've made some really big, sharp rugby league minds in some key positions. Hannay, obviously a very great modern day coach. Scotty Sattler's come in there and doing some great things behind the scenes as well. So some really good places. But yeah, it's just something doesn't feel right at the Titans still at the moment, which is very unfortunate for them. I do really want the Titans to do well. I want them to start to succeed and play some good footy that we can get behind. But yeah, it's tough.
Well,
it's tough at the moment.
Speaking on, and again, and touching on that, on how, and I feel for Titans fans, but Gold Coast Titans are probably the worst run organization in the NRL, and I actually don't think it's particularly close. Now, I think it was today or yesterday, it came out that the Titans have informed Josh Hannay that he won't lose his role if Craig Bellamy gets to the club. Now, that's all well and good, but this story came out maybe a week and a half ago about Craig Bellamy, maybe 2 weeks ago about Craig Bellamy, taking over as the Titans coach if he, wants to join in 2027. If I'm the Titans, I'm putting out a statement that day backing my coach. I'm not waiting a couple of weeks and then letting him know, actually, no, you'll still be our coach, and leaking it through the Daily Telegraph. If I'm the Titans, I'm backing my coach, who I have essentially, heralded as the next great coach in the NRL, and telling him that you are our future, and that if Craig Bellamy does decide to come to the club, he'll come in a supporting role, an advisor role, and that's it. And that should have been a statement that the club released in the opening few days of this whole, whirlwind of headlines. The fact that it took a week and a half for them to kind of just say, oh, by the way, no, you'll still be our coach, points to this club just being awfully run, and essentially a little bit of damage control. And I don't even fully buy it, if I'm being completely honest with you. I think if Craig Bellamy wants to go there and be their head coach, which honestly I don't think he should, I don't think that they are going to stick by their guns and keep Hannay as their head coach. And if they had nipped it in the bud in the opening days, different story. And I think Tino is seeing all this, and he is kind of taken aback by this a little bit, and probably questioning, if the club doesn't have the faith in Hannay, why should I have the faith in Hannay? So it's not a good kind of place to be in at the moment. Now, they have kind of made a couple key signings heading into the next couple of years, one of them being Locky Ilias from the Dragons, who it was announced today that he would be joining the club. But other than that, I'm not overly impressed with what the Titans are doing at the moment.
Mate, your segues are on fire. I was about to say your mailbag. You got to dig pretty deep this week, because there's all major news that has come out this week, and that was the news that may have slipped under the radar for a lot, because there's been a lot going on. But Ilias has it isn't obviously confirmed by the Titans, but it's very heavily linked and virtually at the point of confirmation. So a busy time for Braithen Astor, another one of his clients. A 2-year deal for the Titans.
Yeah, so in recent weeks, I've had a lot of people kind of send me, the talk of Locky Ilias for Philip Sammy. Now, I want to make it clear, That was never happening. That was never a deal that was going to happen. Philip Sami was never going to be swapped for Locky Ilias. And, often when we see swap deals and stuff, it's usually because, of conflicting salaries and lack of spots. But we have seen the Titans essentially retain Philip Sami and also are set to bring in Locky Ilias. So that was never a correlation. So for those, Dragons fans who are probably a little bit disappointed with the result of this, that was all rumors. It was never going to happen anyway. So, and sources close to the Dragons confirmed that a couple of weeks ago. So just want to say that first. But Locky Ilias is set to join the Gold Coast Titans. They've agreed on a 2-year deal. I'm not too sure what the price is at the moment. They have verbally agreed to it, and now it's just a matter of ironing out the details and obviously signing the paperwork. A great deal, I think, for Locky Ilias. I think he didn't get a very fair shot with the Dragons in 2025. I think he played the opening 7 games of NRL and then didn't feature in the side again, despite absolutely killing it in New South Wales Cup. And I think clubs need to essentially look at what these rising halfbacks have done in the past and stop, I guess, mounting the pressure on them from the get-go. Now, I look at a player like Kyle Flanagan back when he was with the Roosters. I actually thought he was quite impressive over there, and I don't think the Bulldogs gave him a fair shot in the following season. So, same with Toby Sexton. I think, he hasn't gotten the opportunities that I think he should have, and when he did get the opportunities, he killed it. And I think Locky Ilias has been one of those players, while a lot of people laughed at him at the time, Jason Demetrio, when he was the coach of the Rabbitohs, he predicted Ilias to be the greatest halfback in Rabbitohs history. Now, obviously, that was way off, but for a coach to have such high regard for a player, he obviously does have talent there, and so. We're talking about the Titans, how poorly run they are. I don't know if the Titans get that out of him, but he's got a much bigger chance of kind of seeing his potential come to fruition with the Titans than it ever happening with the Dragons. So, it looks like he's going to join the club on a 2-year deal. I don't think he's locked into the halfback role there, but, with Kieran Foran leaving, they did want a little bit of insurance, and I wouldn't mind seeing him feature as their 7 in 2026.
Yeah, perfect spot on there. I'm the same. I actually want to see him partner with Campbell to start the next year, actually. I want to see Ilias at halfback. I want to see Campbell at 5'8", running the football, basically free him up. Don't have to bog him down with planning and that sort of thing. I'm actually, if I was a Titans fan, I'm looking forward to that, which it's a conversation we'll have another day, but then it opens the door for what happens with Brimson once again, because he openly says he doesn't want to be centre. But at the moment, that's where I've got him for next year's sort of lineup. So we'll have that discussion at some point. Now let's get into quickly just a little preview with there's some massive international games this weekend, which I am so keen for. I'll be watching them all. I'll be getting up at the middle of the night. Actually, I'll probably be staying up. It's 11:30 Queensland time, so I'll be doing that to watch this first Ashes, and then there's a couple of beauties. I'll be at the Tonga Samoa game as well at Suncorp. Very keen. So let's rip into our internationals preview and best bet segment. So this segment is sponsored by bets.com.au, where you can find free game previews for NRL and all international rugby league matches. But first up, PNG v the Cook Islands. So that's on Saturday, 3 p.m. Queensland time, 4 p.m. New South Wales time. Port Moresby is where it's at. Isaac, Cook Islands must win this one to stay alive. If they lose this, they are done and dusted after losing last week against Fiji. For PNG, for mine, I think there's a bit of pressure on PNG this competition to do well and make sure they win the lower division, because obviously we know they're coming into the NRL. They've really had some time now to develop. They're getting better and better. I feel like this is a big year for them to really put their foot down and show that they're starting to get up to the quality of those other nations in the tier 1 sort of lineups. But very keen for me personally to see what PNG can produce here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually quite excited, like looking at this PNG side moving forward. Quick shout out over on the Cook Islands. I believe it's Valentine Holmes who's actually acting as one of their assistant coaches at the moment over there, which is really cool to see a little bit of a player coach while he's nursing his injury. So just wanted to give a quick shout out to him because I thought that was a really cool story that came out last week. But yeah, look, I'm probably looking at this PNG side. I'm a little bit more impressed by them now. Obviously, they've got quite a few NRL stars throughout their side. And I think that this kind of means a little bit more to them. Obviously, with the PNG Chiefs coming in 2028 to the NRL, there is a little bit more hype around Papua New Guinea and what they can produce. And look, if I'm the Cook Islands, while obviously they need to win to stay in this, I don't know if they've got essentially the firepower to down the PNG side this week. And so I'm probably a little bit more impressed by this PNG side. And from a narrative standpoint, I think that this is only generating more buzz and probably bringing a few eyes to which PNG natives and obviously players with PNG heritage could look to make the move over to the Chiefs in the next few years. So there are quite a few storylines floating around there, but I'm by looking at this kind of team list, I'm a little bit more excited by the PNG side.
Yep, I am with you. And my best bet for this game is Robert Derby, anytime try scorer for PNG on the wing there. I think he will be gifted one, maybe a couple, to be fair. The next one, very, very keen for this one. So Saturday night, 11:30 Queensland time, 12:30 New South Wales time at the great Wembley Stadium. Very keen to watch a league game out of Wembley Stadium. Massive game to start the Ashes series. This one, I was like, I'm so keen. I think there'd be so many staying up and watching this game. The England side still hasn't been named. I don't know what has happened with the rulings and what's changed, but Australia named theirs now, 2 days ago. Still, the English have not done a thing. I would love to clarify that, but everywhere I ask, I have absolutely no idea. And they're just saying, who knows, England's doing England. And so I think over there, they're used to doing it like they can do it up to an hour before kickoff or something. They can change things. So they're just probably playing some silly buggers here. But don't underestimate the English. But what I will say, Isaac, I was worried leading into this who the Australians could pick. But as form has come into it, I'm just so all for the Australian side at the moment. It's not funny. I think the Aussies will win this one. I think they can potentially do this quite comfortably as well. They've just got some of the best players in the competition, some of the most formed players in the world as well. When you got Walsh, he can't put a foot wrong, it feels like, at the moment. Nathan Cleary partnering Cameron Munster in the halves. Harry Grant there. The forward pack with Tino in there with Kalamatangi is awesome to see as well. There's plenty to like about this Australian side, and I'm all over them. What about you?
Yeah, it's. I think a lot of NRL fans have been taken aback by the whole team list thing. Internationals, they're not bound by the whole Tuesday 4 p.m. team list drop that we're used to in the NRL. So I'd expect that. Yeah, look,
it's stupid.
Yeah, it's. Look, I guess it works, I guess, from a media standpoint. Everyone can kind of get this stuff ready. But yeah, I feel like, being bound by those kind of constraints does kind of make it a little bit, especially when you get to this international stage now where they're not bound by these kind of time constraints. Looking at a blank team list for England, I'm gonna get into my whole tinfoil hat bag. I think they're playing mind games with us Australians. And you know what? I love it from England. But I know they're going to produce a good side. I don't know if you saw the England side, half of them playing with the Aussie jerseys on. The mind games are on. They're getting into the mindset that they need to essentially cause an upset over Australia. But I'm going to back our boys in the green and gold this week. I think that this side is just absolutely brilliant. The fact that we've got an Australian side that doesn't have Payne Haas in it and it's still just a mammoth forward pack is just crazy. So I'm really impressed by this side. I'm lucky enough to be working an overnight on Saturday night over at the ABC, so I will be watching as well. And I'm keen to kind of see the boys rip in.
Mate, it's prime time for you in your nighttime working hours that you do. My best bet for that game, I've got Australia 13 plus in that one. The last game, the Sunday at Suncorp Stadium, I cannot wait to be there for this one. Tonga versus Samoa. 3 p.m. Queensland time, 4 p.m. New South Wales time. Samoa, again, must win this one after losing last weekend against the Kiwis. A cracking game that was, so I'm really looking forward to this one. Tonga, being led by Isaiah Katoa in the halves, could be a crucial element to this game. He's one of the form players of the competition, so looking forward to that. Both teams, like you just look through it, it is absolutely, it's on fire. It's such a this game could really channel Origin in terms of how it's played, the intensity, everything. I'm so looking forward to this game. In saying that, like I in a way, Isaac, I think last week you might. In front in this game for mine because they've played that game already. They've had time to develop some combinations. It is international rugby league. We're seeing normally in things like the World Cup where you have to play a few games to really work your combinations out. So this being Tonga's first game might hurt them a little bit where they've got to have some time to click, where Samoa had that last week. I think many can have seen it as well. As the game went on, the Samoa seemed to get better last week. So I think with the like of Payne Haas leading up front, I don't think they can go through this competition losing 2 games in a row. So I think I'm leaning towards Samoa. Yourself?
I'm actually on the other side of the spectrum. I've got Tonga winning this one. This is by far the game of the week for me. But Tonga is just. This side is absolutely lethal, and if this was Australia versus Tonga, I would be worried for the Australians. That's how much I love this side. Now, don't get me wrong. I think it's going to be a tight contest. Whichever side wins, it's going to be 1-12. I want to give a quick shout out to Tonga, who they invited quite a few youngsters coming through the ranks to their camp this week, kind of getting a few young players in and amongst the camp and training with the boys and a few school boys as well. So I had the privilege of breaking one of those stories. So if you want to head over to my Instagram, @IsaacIsa_journalist, you will see that there. But, the Tonga's doing some really cool things over there. And I'm really excited to see them rip in this week. Now, for me, it's a battle of the forward packs. Now, both sides have absolutely brilliant forward packs. I guess you could probably give the edge to Samoa. Obviously, they've got the best forward in the game and probably of all time in Payne Haas, if not definitely top 3 all time forward in Payne Haas at the peak of his powers. And you've got a throbbing halfback in Isaiah Katoa who's just itching to lead this side to glory this weekend. So I probably got Tonga winning it, but it's going to be a cracking match. Absolutely.
My best bet for this one is Samoa, and you're right. I think it's 1-12. I think it's a very close one. But at the end of the day, it would not shock me if it goes 1-12 either way. I just think it's going to be a fantastic game. For the best odds from Aussie Bookmakers, head on over to bets.com.au. You do need to be 18 or over, and please remember to bet or gamble responsibly. Isaac, that's all we've got time for, mate. Time for you to get going and working your night shift to save the planet. Thanks for joining us once again in a very, very busy schedule. Who knows what the game has in store for us next week?
Oh, man, the fact that a majority of our news stories came in the last 48 hours. I obviously missed last week, and Joel sent me a message leading up to the show that I was going to miss and said kind of what news stories are floating around. And I almost had to dig a little bit deep to find some news topics to see for last week. And this week, it just wrote itself for us. So, look, I'm expecting just a whirlwind of headlines next week that we're not even expecting. But I'm going to be here for it. You're going to be here for it, and I'm keen to see kind of where the NRL offseason takes us next. So thank you for having me, and I'm keen for next week.
I might put something out there quickly. We'll be doing this one next week, a day or two before November 1. Maybe we'll do next week's episode a bit of a special for maybe some rumors and player movements and stuff like that we might be hearing, or players just extending things like that. We might do something like that next week. We might just do an exclusive signing sort of edition with at the end. We'll obviously preview a lot of those international games as well. That could be something we do next week, guys. So smash the like button, subscribe button, please give us some love over on those social media pages. We really do appreciate it. But goodbye for now.